Well, thank you so much to all of you. It was a fantastic round. I'm sure you all have lots of questions. I'm just going to start with a short question that just to get things going. I want you to please, if you could give us one short example of some investigation you have done, of some good piece of reporting that you feel proud of, that you think that it was good. You don't all have to answer. Anybody who wants to answer it, that's fantastic.
Can I?
Yep.
I remember in 2012, first of all, some context. We are the most violent country that is not in an official war in the world. So there's a big problem with gangs. We have two main gangs that fight each other and fight with and kill to each other. So in 2012, as a strategy, the government designed as a truce between them in order to give them some privileges in prison to the gang members. So El Faro discovered that case and published it. Actually, El Faro won, I think, Gabriel Garcia Marquez or another prize because of that, because they published a chronicle about how this truce was designed between the government with the gang leaders.
Thank you. Any other?
Quickly, we got a clip online from a group that had found that the government had taken of them kind of torturing and threatening a young student they had captured when they were destroying a village. And some of our team hiked about 4 days across the mountains to go to the village to find out what happened to him. And we found the kid, and he talked about his experience, and it was the first kind of established proof of someone who'd been captured, disappeared, and tortured.
My special proud is article about a neo-Nazi group. My special correspondent come to this group, and he was undercover. And this group posted special ads on gay sites, then catch those people and tortured them and put videos on the internet. They were neo-Nazi. And he discovered this and investigated this, and we published, and police began criminal investigation on them.
Andre or Kolnush?
I think our investigation is ongoing. To give you an example of how the media is spun, how the Western media is spun, within it we just had elections in Iran, parliamentary elections and elections for the assembly that elects a supreme leader. Basically, within a 10-day period, our media went from reporting that all the reformists were disqualified to run for the elections to the reformists won all the elections. And we were in a position to very quickly explain what had happened, and it was amazing to see how quickly everybody else had to change their narrative in order to fall into, yes, how did that happen? But it's just so easy to spin for foreign journalists. I'm sorry.
Andrea and Enoch, I wanted to ask you something specific about your sites, because both of you said that you had a lot of help from your readers, or from what you called, Andre, the civic energy or something like that. This is something very special, and it's not very common in other countries. Could you tell us a little bit, how do your readers help you make your sites?
We need help from readers in different ways. First of all, they provide us news, both simple text information, photos, videos. We also are reliant on their money. That in a situation we need to have private donations to survive. But also we need what we need most, we need ideas from them. And now the ideas from our readers, which we get both from comments on the website through Facebook, Vkontakte, which is the most popular social network, Twitter, etc., etc. You only need to analyze, to catch it, and you will have thousands of ideas.
At Hivisasa, we just depend on the people on the ground, people who have no training in journalism, to write to us to submit news stories. And if you look at what we pay them, it's not really something that will encourage someone sort of to pursue a career in that. It's just a small amount of money to somehow cover the cost. But basically, people report about what's around them. And if you look at some of the reports we've been getting, it's about the issues that they feel concern them, concern the community around, the governance, all the issues. Like, there's a recent, we just started publishing videos as we try and test and learn. And there's a video we received from one of our citizen reporters about a local chief who was criticizing the president. The president was in Nakuru the previous week, not actually the previous week, a few days ago. And then he was criticizing him for his campaign to end liquor. He was totally drunk. So one of our citizen reporters captured the video, sent it to us. We published it. Of course, it went viral. So he was actually questioning, because they were questioning his integrity. He's supposed to lead the fight against illicit liquor in the area, but he's the one who is drunk, who doesn't know what's happening around him. So such things of empowering citizens to report what's happening around them and putting their leaders to those is what has given us the energy and is what is driving the momentum to cover local news in Kenya.
You're receiving like 1,000 stories a month?
No, we are publishing actually 1,000 stories a week.
A week,
so
from,
that's like
from the readers?
From the readers, yeah.
And how do you control quality? Is there any quality control, or?
Not so much, although although we provide them with a tool to learn about just the basics of news reporting. It's called the Hivisasa Academy. But when we receive, say, a report that we feel may not be accurate, then we take the extra steps to make sure we verify that the reports we are publishing are actually accurate and true. And of course, the citizen reporters usually send us the live photos of the things they are reporting about, or even videos, and then so there's some element of evidence, proof of what we are saying. And if you look at what the news stories we've done over the past 2 years, there are very minimal cases of inaccurate reports coming from.
So people are more prompt to telling the truth than if you were, for example, asking politicians to send you stories.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you. Okay. Well, I had another question for all of you. You are proposing good national or even local journalism, or international in some cases, but journalism that really knows places that are not easy right now to do good journalism about. And these are also places with a lot of international interest, a lot of them. Are you building these international partnerships? Are you finding difficulties in building these international partnerships? I know, Trevor, you mentioned that you have had some international partnerships, so you, Kolnush, but has it been difficult? The thinking of these international news organizations, has it been changing? Does the digital revolution has also helped them to start changing how they view reporting in difficult places?
Yes and no. Every once in a while you have like geniuses like David Fanning, who pulled us into Frontline. You had an Alan Rusberger who facilitated our partnership with The Guardian. But when they go, people don't understand why you're there. When the big boss isn't there to say this is important, they don't really know. So it's very difficult because there's this mentality when I started journalism that if you're Iranian, you shouldn't be covering Iran. I mean, one of my first interviews, a producer asked me, he goes, this film is going to be about Iran and you're Iranian, is that going to be a problem? I said, who's covering Washington, D.C., Iranians? And he got it and gave me the job. But now that same mentality in terms of who the gatekeepers were, in terms of who can do mainstream journalism, that mentality has shifted to the foundation. So the people who are getting the money to do the journalism projects are the white men who used to run these organizations. So, as I was alluding to earlier, when there's Ahmadinejad in power, people understand, but then when there's more of a need for it, but it's more nuanced, then they don't understand the need and they go, why should we read you? Why should we have you? Why should we support you? So it's a mixed bag in terms of being associated with news organizations that have their own agenda.
What about you, Trevor? What has been your experience in Sudan?
I think we're going through a pretty large revolution in what large international news organizations will take from the field. When I was starting out, everything had to be the foreign correspondent on the ground who saw it himself, and then all of a sudden, big newspapers are publishing Human Rights Watch reports virtually verbatim. So there's a comfort for these partners to work with trusted organizations where they know the methodologies, they know the workflow. And I think that's a good thing. And I think, we've had a lot of success working with partners. It really helps us because it helps us up our game, and our team gets to work with, very experienced journalists. It's a lot of work because every single partner we work with has its own format and its own, type of news that it wants. But I think it's the future. I don't think there's any other way. All the bureaus in Nairobi are one man. The bureaus in Tehran are maybe one person. So everybody's going to have to work together to get news out. We have to come up with institutions and structures and standards that will enable that to happen. Otherwise, we're just not going to have news getting out. But it is a Wild West time. A lot of the content you guys are all seeing from mainstream trusted news brands is coming from not their staffers. It's coming from other people. And we have to acknowledge that, and I think, work together on making sure that that's the right stuff.
Anybody else?
Thank you. Actually, we have very good relationships with Western media. At first, every media in the United States and Europe wrote about launching this crazy Russian project in small Latvia. Do you remember where Belarus is? It's a little bit to the north. So from New Yorker to BuzzFeed, from Le Monde to Süddeutsche Zeitung, every media wrote about launching our project, and now we have English version, and Guardian and Quartz republished our investigations and our big interviews. So everything is okay. Thank you.
And at TVSAS, actually, since we started and we've proven that we are doing very well with local news, community radio stations in several parts of the country have been very interested in partnering with us to pick our stories. For example, there is a leading radio station in Nakuru. Nakuru is like the fourth largest city in the country. They have partnered with us, so when they're doing their news bulletins, they just go to our site and then pick the stories and then share them with their audience. And then we also have organizations that are interested in, say, promoting maternal health. Like that's the campaign in which we are part of right now. In the rural areas, there are areas which are very much affected. So what they do is they offer incentives to our citizen reporters to do more of those stories because the readership is quite huge at the moment.
You say that there is a lot of international interest to places like we are from.
I don't know.
In the Belarusian case, you know that we have only foreign correspondents from Russia in our country. And correspondents from other countries come to Belarus every 5 years at the presidential election, not more. That's a problem for us, that lack of interest, that reproducing of stereotypes about our countries. We would like you all to come to Belarus and write about us.
I think there are more.
Andre, I had a question for you. I did come to Belarus 5 years ago. But as a trainer, my name is James Briner. I'm with the University of Navarra, and in 2011 I went to Brest and Sloniem and Slutsk and Baranovichi to work with editors and publishers there. At that time, I'm just curious to know what the situation is now with the independent press, because at that time, these publishers were not able to get their newspapers onto the newsstands because the government has a monopoly, and they banned these publications. And also the government has a monopoly on supplying paper, the newsprint, and they have to buy it from the government, and it's very expensive. I'm just wondering, is that still the same, and are those publications still publishing? Brest Courier, Brest Gazeta, Sloniem Gazette, so on.
Thank you for the question. I'm from Brest. I was born in Brest. The situation is still the same, a bit different, and I would say a bit worse than it was 5 years ago, because now we have a combination of two bad factors for all these publications. They are all alive and very strong, very motivated. One factor is that in Belarus, like in other countries, people go online. Earlier, it was easier because at least you had subscribers who paid. And now you have to monetize online, which is not very easy in the situation when the government controls advertisement. So on the one hand, you have this problem of transition online, and on the other hand, there is a kind of Belarusian fatigue. Nothing changes in our region, and international donors which supported the media are pulling out. So the combination of these two factors makes difficulties, but I am sure that we will overcome all the difficulties.
Thank you. My name is Alejandro Gonzalez. I work with 14 Medio, which is a Cuban news outlet, very similar to the work that you guys are all doing. One of the challenges that we are having now is growing our distribution beyond the site and finding and creating new revenue streams that are self-generated. Would love, and we're learning from other models and other people. So I would like to know from a variety of you, how are you growing your distribution outside of your sites, and what tools are working for you? And what are some of the revenue streams that you're implementing that are not dependent on donors that are proving successful?
I'll just say three things. One is partnerships that can bring in some amount of money. If you prove, indispensable or vital to the people you're working with. Other thing is mobile cinemas, like sending people around to show your content if you do video. Can be a great way to engage. It's not a huge audience, but it can engage people, get you story ideas. It can be kind of an event. And then also, podcast and audio.
Thank you. In our case, we're producing an annual event called Central American Forum of Journalism, which make us able to invite lots of journalists from the region, and we invite our audience, and they buy tickets to participate in the forum, and we also give workshops, and students of journalism pay for receive the workshop, and that has been one of the main examples. And the other one could be that we have tried to make alliance with international media. For example, this year we will have a project with the New York Times that will help us and work with us to make an investigation about gangs, and they will publish in English, and we will publish at the same time in Spanish. So that's another, that we don't see it as a grant, we see it as a partnership with another media.
Speaking of Medusa, we launched the project not based on not on a website but on applications because of the threat of blocking. There are Russian authorities cannot block apps still. So we launched Medusa around the application. Now we have a website, applications, messenger channels, browser extensions, special email subscription, and it works. Maybe 6 mobile version, so it's 6 or 7 channels of distribution. And now we're working on other. Speaking about revenue, we covered more than half of our budget this year by advertising, and it's all about branded content or native advertising. So we hope to be sustainable before the next year.
One of the things that we're experimenting with is business, financial, and legal news, because all the interest in Iran is in that department right now. And the news organizations that have made money, like the Wall Street Journal, Bloomberg, they sell subscriptions or terminals that give that kind of information. So if we're able to be even moderately successful in that, will bring hopefully the kind of revenue that will allow us to do all the work that we need to do that we haven't been able to do, because we are dependent on our partnerships and funding that doesn't, it's very difficult to get.
May I add, sorry, there were a lot of discussions about paywall here at the conference, and frankly, it's not our situation, because I'm totally against paywall in Russian situation, because paywall in Russia, it's like selling medicine in the poorest regions of in Africa, or selling fresh air to people. There are millions of people in Russia who desperately need objective information. We do not want to sell it, and that's why paywall is not the solution for us.
Great. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Jordi Melendez. I'm from Mexico. I do research about digital media outlets in Latin America. And I would like to know from you guys, how many people do you have in your teams? How many people work with you nowadays? And with how many people did you start your teams? The other question is, where did you get the talent? Your journalists, where do you get them?
Should I go first? Ours has changed significantly over time. It depends on what's going on. Sometimes when you expect people not to want to cooperate from inside the country, to be afraid, the times when the government is clamping down, for some reason that's when they all want, they risk and they give you the information. They're journalists working for state media, but they're filing the real stories for you. It changes, but we've been very lucky. Most of our talent has come from Columbia Journalism School, because they go and work at other news organizations, and then they come back and want to work for us because they're really into the journalism and not so much into some of the other things they have to do to have a job these days at a news organization, making lists and running after trends and making lists. So
El Faro started with around 6 or 7 journalists, students of journalism. It's a strange case because since 1998 to 2003 or 4, El Faro's revenue was 0, and its costs were 0 also, because they made it in a house and everybody did it as a volunteer. And since we started getting projects till this time, we are around 30 people, which to the newsroom belong around 20, 21, and the other ones have administrative, business, and commercial responsibilities.
I'm happy to talk with you about that afterwards.
We started with 15 people, and I do not like to divide journalists and programmers or developers. We are all team, and we started with 15 people. Now there are 26 in my team.
And the people we started with were 3, and right now we are about 20.
We are 16, including the accountant. And all of them are multifunctional, but the accountant. And now I'm thinking, what can the accountant do inside our team? As for the roots of the journalism, you know, my grandmother, my babushka, was telling me stories before sleep, and I loved it so much. And now when I have time, I'm telling stories to my children before sleep. They love it as well.
The Medusa project is brilliant, and just mocking your leader, the dictator, in that way is brilliant. You know, a lot of Chinese people are trying to do same thing. You know, Chinese people are using humor, memes, and stuff to fight suppression of freedom of speech as well. But I have never seen in China it's impossible to mock the top leader like you do. So I was wondering, how can you survive? How do you make yourself survive in a harsh political environment like that, and for how long?
You know, hard to say. Every day can be the last day, as you know. And I'm a devoted believer in Saint Jobs. So every day I stand behind the, I stand near the mirror and said, this day I can die. So, you know, every day could be the last day. But we try not to think about it at all. Because it's some kind of loser method of thinking. We try not to notice those Russian authorities or watchdogs or so-called Siloviks. But frankly, it seemed to me that there is a border or cross line. It lies near 5-6 million unique users per month when you can be on the radar. So we are near, let's see.
My name is Emma, and I work with an organization called Just Vision, and we produce digital media and documentary films about Israel-Palestine, and specifically focusing on grassroots leadership and community organizing. And one of the projects that we have is a site that's similar to a lot of what you guys have shared. It's called Local Call, and it's an alternative Hebrew language blog within Israel that works to agitate in the mainstream media there. And my question is coming off of something Anak said, which was in relationship to how your stories get picked up by the mainstream media and how you see that as beneficial, as maybe validation for the work you're doing. And I wanted to hear from others about how you navigate relationships within the media landscapes that you're working in. And do you see that as a goal to be integrating or getting picked up by those mainstream media outlets, or is it more adversarial, the type of relationship that you have?
It keeps changing. It depends who's president and what the U.S. foreign policy is. It's very difficult. When we were at PBS, we were getting picked up all the time. We were being quoted all the time. We were getting inundated with requests from reporters. Since we switched, I don't know if it's kind of an adverse. First of all, if we get quoted, the Guardian is going to get quoted, not Tehran Bureau. And and most news organizations don't want to quote another, their competitors. So it was amazing it's amazing to watch our stuff get picked up, copy and pasted with absolutely no reference. So right now, I think in the past it was more, it was friendlier, and I think right now it's much more adversarial because we're going against the stream.
in our case, we do not have a bad but nor a great relationship with traditional media. We have great relationship with other media, alternative and independent journalism sites in Central America. For example, Guatemalan Nómada, Plaza Pública, Confidencial in Nicaragua. But with traditional media, El Salvador is a small market in a small country, so some of our stories reach a lot of people in internet, although traditional media do not replicate them.
I think the first thing you need to start with, I guess, yeah, I mean, we're all very close to the ground, working with people who have, biases, obviously. But it's about, having a verified, accurate journalism product. And I think that most news organizations, regionally or internationally, are quite interested in that. They can trust it, but that relationship takes a lot of time. I mean, B'Tselem in Palestine and Israel, they've been working on this for a long time. They have a great, strong network, and they tend to have, a lot of luck getting their material in to media. But it's about trust. But it's also another issue. They have different agendas than, maybe the people on the ground do. And bridging that is, I think, a really important thing to do, but it's definitely not an easy thing to do.
We have 2 projects. One we called Medusa's Friends, and we picked up a few independent and high-quality media and gave them sharing our audience with them, putting their widgets and their special blocks of titles to our first page. And second is Medusa Care. There are a lot of NGOs, media in Russia, and they have no chance to reach audience. Audience is too small, so we do a free of charge promo through banners on our sites to this NGO, and it seems to me it's very good example of relationships.
And at TV Sasa, we have become the go-to place when you've heard something has happened at some remote place, part of the country. If you go to our site, you are most likely to find the story, because we tend to report things as they happen. So we've had a lot of requests from the other mainstream media houses who want to pursue or to make a further story on something we've done. So it seems like it's working pretty well for us.
In Belarus, simply this new media became the mainstream. We became the mainstream now.
Hi, my name is Firuz. I'm from Tajikistan. In most of former Soviet Union countries, the governments try to block web pages, even social media. I would like to know what's the situation in your countries in this sphere. And also, it will be nice to hear what kind of methods and pressure use your governments for keeping in control media community and journalists. Thank you.
I can start. Russian authorities did not block us, thanks God. But on the second day of our job, Kazakhstan authorities, they blocked us in all country of Kazakhstan. And for a year and a half, we played cat and mouse. We did special applications. They block us through mobile operators and so on and so on. And our last attempt was to put our pages on the Google Cloud service in Kazakhstan, and Kazakhstan authorities yesterday tried to block us, and Google went down through all over Kazakhstan. So after half an hour, they re-block our site, and we are in Kazakhstan. We can open in Kazakhstan freely. We have a lot of technical methods and tricks to avoid blocking, but frankly, I do not share all of them with you. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, we have a similar cat and mouse relationship with the authorities, you know, and it's constantly evolving, it's constantly changing. And on the ground, it's, you know, it's incredibly dangerous to do this kind of work in Sudan. I mean, torture is common, arrest is common. You know, it's pretty high risk stuff, but it's also, you know, it's stuff that I think people believe in enough to take these risks. And you know, yeah, it's being stubborn and patient and very, very cautious.
In our case, regarding the government, it's really haven't been difficult to make journalism, although going to the ground may be dangerous. Regarding the government, it has not been difficult. I really do not know why, because it's a difficult country to live in. But what has been difficult is to reach information and to be able to interview. For example, El Faro hasn't been able to interview any of the last 5 presidents, because I guess 5 or 4, because they don't give us interview, because we are the only ones that make uncomfortable questions.
In 2009, we were able to use, to actually really effectively deal with it. There was a service of denial attack. They took our website down because everybody was getting their news from us, and I was sitting there with all this information coming in from sources that I knew. So I started using Twitter to put the story out, and I think I was probably one of the first places that started using Twitter effectively. So in 2 days, I went from having like 40 or 60 followers to 19,000. And now it's more subtle. You know, one source inside the country told me once that if we can't get to you directly, we'll get to you indirectly. And so they have, the Iranian establishment has foot soldiers, and depending on how sophisticated or unsophisticated the media is, the person who's kind of assigned to that website to tarnish your credibility, to make it go away, is that much more sophisticated. So when we were at PBS, you know, we were at Frontline, the person assigned to discredit us was very articulate, syntax was perfect, commas in the right places. And so as soon as we had a story, you know, he'd come out and say, I'm assuming is a he, would say that, oh, you guys are lying, this is not, there weren't this many protesters, you're lying about this, you're lying about that. And when I tried to cut him off from scaring all of our other commenters away, you know, they go to the ombudsman, and if the ombudsman, if what they say about us feeds the ombudsman's own latent prejudices and biases about other Iranians covering Iran, then they have a very effective method. But if you're doing your job and you're doing it well, and you know that the truth is on your side, it somehow pulls you through, and you always find alternative ways of doing things.
And in Kenya, actually, right now we are enjoying very vibrant media freedoms, but that was not the situation before 2012. After 2012, when someone who is largely considered a dictator left office, we've enjoyed a lot of freedom. So right now, we don't see cases of journalists being largely harassed, but we have a few instances, but the 2010 constitution, which replaced the independence one, has given journalists a lot of freedoms. So we're quite good at that.
Hello, I'm Nilsa Varela from Sembra Media and also Diario El Vistazo. I would like to know how to return the content to the community that you are covering. I ask because I work in an oil region of Venezuela where we have a little penetration of internet, and we also have, it's not my cell phone. It's Putin game. Okay, I'm asking because I work in an oil region of Venezuela where is a little penetration of internet, and also we have communities that don't know how to use technology. And I want to know, like Nuba reports, how how you make possible return the content that you covered to that community?
So in the Numa Mountains and Blue Nile, where a lot of our team operates, we do mobile cinemas. So we have a team that actually right now, because the motorbike is broken, but that will walk, for hours to different villages, and they'll show our films. They usually start at 9 and end about 5. They do about 5 different rounds. People they like it so much. But that's not, it's not a huge amount of people, but these are places that have no cellular network, that have no internet, that have no digital. But the other thing that, we're looking, a lot of this wouldn't have worked 3 or 4 years ago. There wasn't enough mobile and internet penetration inside Sudan to justify even doing this. But it's literally been the last few years where at least there's enough now. It's only going to increase, and it's going to increase exponentially. So I do think, in the next, in 3 or 4 years, what we're doing now is going to be omnipresent across Sudan and undeniable. But the other thing that, we're looking at and people have used quite effectively in Africa is SMS messaging. So they'll be sending out updates and getting updates through that. And then we're also talking to a number of radio partners on the ground, and also looking at shortwave. You can beam in shortwave for about a half hour, for $200 for like a half hour. So radio is another way of doing it. But it's really complicated and difficult in these kinds of, and that's the thing. It's great because the internet allows you to get around the barricades, but it makes it still very difficult for people to actually read this, because what people want to read is the newspapers in Sudan. Actually, it's not old-fashioned there. People love newspapers and they share them amongst themselves, but you can't do that. So. Yeah, we're not. It's just tough.
But one case that I found really interesting, and I would like ISOJ to just mention it very briefly, related to this, is how you do adapt. Is that you were telling us earlier how, in your case, some of the advertising, you're doing it on print. For ISOJ, that they do the advertising on print. That you do the advertising on print, even though everything is mobile and your whole Hivisasa experience is mobile, yeah. like Trevor was saying, that they're adapting to the situation. In your case, you're adapting to the situation because the advertising, people didn't want it, I understand, they didn't want it online. They wanted to see their ads on print. So you created a printed magazine of advertising to distribute in the communities, in the counties, Is this right? No?
Yeah, it is actually. It's something we were testing, and we wanted to see if it works. So we rolled it out in one of the counties called Wasingishu in Eldoret, where we go to local businesses who are actually the people we target to advertise on our site. But now, in this case, because they want to see their ads on paper, so we went and they gave us their ads, and we printed them with some interesting stories from that area. We do it monthly, and so far it's been doing well. We've run it, I think, this is the 3rd month.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think we don't have any more. No? We're done. Thank you very much. Thank you.